From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. The headline in Foreign Affairs magazine was blunt. It read, "China is winning the cyber war." And the author was none other than Ann Neuberger, Biden's White House cyber czar.
The concern I was highlighting in the article is that China's positioned to take advantage of AI on both offense and defense, and the United States is not positioned to take advantage of AI for defense, and that will continue to advance China's advantage in cyberspace.
If her voice sounds familiar, it's because we've had her on the show before. Her official title was Deputy National Security Advisor for Cyber and Emerging Technologies. And her piece in Foreign Affairs zoomed in on a campaign we've written a lot about, the one launched by Salt Typhoon, a Chinese-backed hacking group that burrowed deep into U.S. telecom networks.
Our government discovered a massive cyber breach, and the more we learn about it, the bigger it gets.
They've tapped into communications at the highest levels of American government, from staff of congressional leadership to the incoming Trump White House. And that's just the start.
And here's the thing. Ann says that breach, it wasn't just another headline. It was a canary in the coal mine.
China increasingly is compromising parts of U.S. infrastructure, pipelines, water companies, power grid, not for routine espionage, but rather to pre-position to potentially disrupt those operations in the event of a crisis or conflict.
From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here's Mic Drop, a longer listen to one of our favorite interviews of the week. I'm Dina Temple-Raston. On Tuesday, we told you about visa denials, shrinking research budgets, and how those shifts are accelerating China's progress in science and tech. But there's another front where the U.S. is lagging: cyber resilience. That's the ability to absorb a cyber attack and recover quickly.
Despite a lot of good progress and efforts made on improving the national cybersecurity, there's a big difference between China's model and the U.S.'s model.
The problem isn't just old systems, it's how the whole thing is stitched together.
We have a great deal of old systems that are hard to defend.
A power grid in Ohio might have one level of defense, and California, something entirely different. That patchwork makes us vulnerable, and adversaries know it. But Ann says there's a way to change that.
When you just think about the largest AI companies, many of them are American. On the other hand, American digital infrastructure that Americans rely on every day is some of the least resilient in the world.
So she's looking for ways to make our systems stronger and smarter and safer. And she says it could start with something that sounds almost sci-fi: seeing double. Stay with us. Support for Click Here comes from Clean My Mac. If you're like me, your cloud drives are packed with files you don't actually need. Sync duplicates, old backups, random junk just gobbling up storage. Clean My Mac takes care of that with a new cloud cleanup feature. It connects to your accounts on iCloud, OneDrive, and Google Drive and scans to find large space wasters, both in cloud storage and on your device. And while my Mac health is apparently excellent, Clean My Mac found 8 gigabytes of junk on my computer and tons of duplicate downloads, and it removed a bunch of leftover applications I never use. Who knew? And this happens locally on my Mac, so my data stays safe. Clean My Mac has a whole suite of other features, too, including their Moonlight anti-malware engine. With just a click, the anti-malware tool scans and removes viruses, ensuring your Mac remains threat-free. Not everything deserves eternal storage, so why pay for it? Get tidy today with Clean My Mac. Try it free for 7 days and use the promo code CLICK to save an additional 20% on your purchase at cleanmymac.com. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here's Mic Drop. Before the break, we talked about how America's patchwork of aging systems and uneven defenses leaves us vulnerable to attack, a problem that China, with its centralized model, doesn't really have.
China, both via state-owned enterprises, owns pipelines, water companies, and its energy grid, and also monitors it via something called the Great Firewall. So that positions the Chinese government to block cyber attacks because they can both monitor, for example, the network of a water company via the Great Firewall, and also can disrupt that cyber attack because in many cases they own via state-owned enterprise the water company. And in the United States, almost all pipelines, water companies, and the power grid are owned by private companies.
But here's the wrinkle. In the U.S., private companies don't just own the grid or the pipelines or the water systems. They also guard the secrets of how they run. And historically, they've been loath to hand over those trade secrets or intellectual property to any centralized authority. That instinct to kind of protect their secret sauce makes sense for business, but it complicates resilience. Because you can't defend what you cannot see. But Ann Neuberger says there's a way to flip that script. And it starts with something that sounds kind of creepy. A digital twin.
I propose the idea of AI-generated digital twins as a way to simulate cyber attacks on a copy, a virtual replica of, for example, our power grid, to help us identify the vulnerabilities that are the most critical.
What exactly is a digital twin?
A digital twin is essentially a virtual replica of a system. So think about, for example, a manufacturing plant that's manufacturing cars. A virtual replica of that can help a company, for example, optimize the production process, figure out, based on the data, where there are a lot of errors, based on the sensors, where different parts of it are getting wear and tear. And you can glean that kind of information without actually having to disrupt the actual manufacturing floor.
That mirror also lets you test scenarios, even cyber attacks, without touching the real thing.
A virtual replica of that system helps you simulate attacks, helps you identify what are critical vulnerabilities, and helps you test resilience to identify what are the most important things on a virtual replica of a given system, so that you've really, beaten out all the bugs and have identified the best solutions in order to actually deploy them on the live system with the least disruptions possible.
And it's not just a theory.
In Singapore, we enjoy one of the most reliable standards of electricity supply in the world.
Singapore is already using digital twins with its critical infrastructure.
The answer lies in the digital twin of the grid. This is a virtual replica.
I've talked with the team in Singapore. Essentially, they work to create digital twins of some systems as well as sandboxes of other critical infrastructure.
A sandbox is like a practice field, a costly physical copy of a network system. Same software, hardware, firewalls. But a digital twin is its cheaper AI-driven cousin. NATO is already experimenting with digital twins, building replicas of essential systems to practice defending against sophisticated attacks. Has a digital twin ever been hacked?
I don't believe so.
But that must be a concern.
A digital twin, it's a virtual replica. It's not actually an operational system. It's more of a simulation, resilience, and testing system. So in some ways, if a digital twin was hacked, it would give good insights on how the actual system is weak, right? Because in some ways, what you want to do is actually successfully hack a digital twin and say, okay, how easy is it to hack? How are the ways we ensure that the system it's copying is far harder to hack, or we address the vulnerabilities that enabled it to be hacked?
Still, it's worth pausing here, because hacking a digital twin may not bring the lights down, but it isn't harmless either. A twin, after all, is a map of the real system. And if an adversary breaks into the map, they can learn exactly where to strike. Anne says it's useful to test vulnerabilities that way, but it doesn't erase the risk. Sometimes practice fields can be breached too. Now the question is whether the U.S. can move fast enough to put all that in place before China does. That's when we come back. Stay with us. Support for Click Here comes from Claude AI. Claude is the AI for minds that don't stop at good enough. It's the collaborator that actually understands your entire workflow and thinks with you, not for you. Whether you're debugging code at midnight or strategizing for your next business move, Claude extends your thinking to tackle the problems that matter. Who needs a regular search when you can have a conversation with Claude about what you're looking for? And, unlike some of the other AI helpers I've used, Claude doesn't retain information from previous conversations, so it's private. Ready to tackle bigger problems? Sign up for Claude today and get 50% off Claude Pro when you use my link, claude.ai/clickhere. That's claude.ai/clickhere right now for 50% off your first 3 months of Claude Pro. And that includes access to all the features mentioned in today's episode. claude.ai/clickhere.
What the hell is going on right now? And why is it happening like this? At Wired, we're obsessed with getting to the bottom of those questions on a daily basis. And maybe you are too. I'm Katie Drummond, the global editorial director of Wired, and I'm hosting our new podcast series, The Big Interview. Each week, I'll sit down with some of the most interesting, provocative, and influential people who are shaping our right now. Big interview conversations are fun.
I want a shark that
eats the internet,
that turns it all off.
Unfiltered, and unafraid.
So in a lot of ways, I try to be an antidote to the unimaginable faucet of reactionary content that you see online, to the best of my ability.
Every week, we're going to offer you the ultimate luxury of our times, meaning and context. True or false? You, Brian Johnson, the man sitting across from me, one day, at some point, as of yet undefined in the future, you will die.
False.
Tell me more. Listen to The Big Interview right now in the same place you find Wired's Uncanny Valley podcast. Subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcasts.
Before the break, Ann Neuberger laid out a vision for how digital twins could transform the way we defend our critical infrastructure. But getting there, that's where things get complicated.
Getting private sector owners or operators to bring more visibility to their cybersecurity is challenging because, making people more aware of risks and threats puts upon them then the obligation to address them.
Because the moment companies acknowledge vulnerabilities, they're on the hook to fix them.
Critical infrastructure companies haven't made the investments because it costs money.
But here's the thing. Cleanup costs even more.
The nation's hospitals have spent hundreds of millions of dollars cleaning up after cyber attacks.
That reality pushed the Biden administration to issue an executive order requiring minimum cybersecurity standards for key industries.
President Biden overturned really decades of bipartisan hesitation to put in place minimum cybersecurity requirements for power pipelines, water, and airports.
Anne believes a logical next step is to start with the Department of Energy, which already models physical grid disruptions like those caused by big storms.
The Department of Energy also has a lot of AI expertise via the national labs and a lot of classified intelligence about Chinese, Iranian, and Russian offensive cyber capabilities.
An AI could be a game changer, making digital twins faster and less expensive to build, and give companies the tools to spot weaknesses before attackers do.
What AI changes is the ability to integrate a lot of data, for example, from lots of sensors, and then create a visual and a mapping of something. So as much as AI is a game changer in helping attackers, it's a game changer in the ability to create digital twins and then to use those to make sense of a lot of data.
And it turns out digital twins aren't just for cybersecurity. They're popping up everywhere. Farms use them. Supply chains use them. Space agencies use them. IBM and NASA, in fact, just built one for the sun. A digital replica that lets scientists model solar flares and space weather, without waiting to see what the real sun does to our satellites. What institutional changes do you think we need in government, industry, academia, so that digital twins don't sort of stay in the lab, but actually get operationalized in a really large-scale way?
I love that question because that last mile in cybersecurity is often where it breaks down. And I think the key stakeholders we want to connect are the private sector companies with good AI knowledge, the Googles, Microsofts, OpenAIs of the world, the government agencies with good AI knowledge, the national labs, the National Institute for Standards, with those specific companies that own and operate our critical infrastructure, bringing that knowledge together to build digital twins. And then most importantly, and that can include a fourth group I would actually add, are cybersecurity companies. Bringing that consortium together can help us bring the actual networks that need to be defended, the AI knowledge that helps us build a copy of it, with the intelligence about adversaries' capabilities to ensure that our defenses can defend against the most powerful attacks.
Digital twins won't solve every problem, but in a world where the line between conflict and cyber conflict is vanishing, they could buy us something priceless: time to respond and resilience to recover. And maybe, just maybe, they'll help us stop seeing cybersecurity as an endless game of catch-up and start seeing it for what it could be: a chance to finally get ahead. From Recorded Future News, this has been Click Here's Mic Drop. It was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Gaida, Zach Hirsch, Lucas Riley, and me, Dina Temple-Raston. It was edited by Karen Duffin. We'll be back on Tuesday with an all-new episode of Click Here. Have a great weekend.
If you're looking for a daily guide to cybersecurity news and policy, sign up for the Cyber Daily from Recorded Future News. It serves up the day's most interesting and important cyber stories from our sister publication, The Record, and then aggregates all of the big cyber stories you might have missed from news outlets around the world. Just go to therecord.media and click on Cyber Daily to get all you need to know about the world of cybersecurity right in your inbox.